Speaker is Jim Richardson, the LSU Economist, and he's going to give us a broad-based view of the development of the Louisiana tax reform. Jim?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gene. And let me say, as an economist, we have a certain definition of tax reform. And typically when we say tax reform, we mean broad base, low rate, simple and fair as possible, competitive, and then providing the money the state says it needs for those services we want to pay for. Now, and I believe when Governor General came out with his first discussion of tax reform, he kind of defined it in those terms. Low rates, broad base, simple and fair. But then we came out with a particular proposal that Jason just talked about. I said, is this tax reform or tax deform? Because look at the differences we have here. No income tax. Everybody can say that sounds great. No income tax, but we still want some services. And the governor said very clearly, this is revenue neutral. We're going to make up the difference someplace else. So some other rate goes up, and that's the sales tax rate goes up. So you have a higher rate, which is contrary to what you typically think about tax reform, and you have one rate is zero. And we have to go back and say, okay, what do we really want to accomplish? We say, okay, the income tax. If you look at our income tax right now, compared to other states, again, take away Texas and Florida that are exceptions, we have a very comparable, very competitive, and very workable income tax. It's simple to do. It's not the element of the complications in our tax system at all. So that's not an issue. Now, on the sales tax, there's no doubt the sales tax base is dated. It's commodity driven, whereas the economy is now service driven. Expanding the sales tax base is a good idea. You can also expand the sales tax base and lower the rate in that sense and maintain revenue neutrality. The other element is look at the revenues about the stability. The major instabilities, the inability to forecast, comes from primarily the corporate income tax, which has incredible gyrations and ups and downs in our mineral revenues. So that's where the real focus needs to be. How do we get some type of revenue forecasting connected to those elements? But if you go back and say, okay, if we do what the governor's saying, what are the issues, what are the implications? Well, one, you certainly have a very major shift in the distribution of who pays for state services. Now, the administration has been very upfront, saying we are going to make sure we don't put an undue burden on the lower income people. That's going to be one more element of complication to the system, though, that they have to somehow handle that. And then, but still, on the income tax, you eliminate the income tax, each of us in this room can say to ourselves, I know exactly how much I'm going to save from that provision. But how much will we pay from all the other new taxes? We're not so sure. Be hard to work out. But somebody is going to pay that. And the question is where and whom? Well, if you look at all the services that they're suggesting, certainly a lot of those will be business-oriented taxes, probably, which will leak down to the system someplace. So once you start changing the tax system tremendously, there are a lot of repercussions. And then the other repercussion on the forecasting is what happens as we make the transition. How do we forecast all these things? How do we know for sure how much money we'll get from this new tax base? Well, it will be trial and error. They have great people helping them. They'll do their very best. The numbers will be as honest can be. But the odds are they'll be wrong. And then we have to kind of work our way through that system again. We'll ask questions after that, okay? Thank you very much. Otherwise, I'll...